On behalf of Ambassador for Self-Determination, I'd like to welcome you to this gathering, which we're gathered today to support the freedom of Mazi Nnamdi. So let's watch this video.
Putin killed Navalny because Navalny was the one opposition leader in Russia that Putin feared the most. So this is a really tragic day for me, and it should be a tragic day for anybody who cares about democracy. You know, remember, he went back to Russia. He didn't have to go back. He went back for his country because he was a patriot that believed that his country could be different. I put him in the same ranks as the Navalny of Mandela and Valenza and Havel, but with one tragic difference now. Navalny is dead.
This particular clip, I was watching that, was a Friday morning when we got the news of Alexei Navalny's death. And obviously, the thing that came to mind, I didn't know much about Alexei, but this says it all, because he was under Vladimir Putin's thumb. First, I started to see the resemblance between his situation and Mazi Nnamdi's situation. Putin, as the head of state, tried to poison this gentleman, and then he recovered from that. The Nigerian government tried to kill Mazi Nnamdi, and he survived and escaped. Navalny returned to Russia. He was immediately arrested and put in jail, solitary confinement. Mazi Nnamdi was minding his own business in Kenya when he was illegally abducted, renditioned to Nigeria, and put in jail, solitary confinement. Same situation. Anybody that cares about democracy, the first thing that comes to mind is not to let Mazi Nnamdi fate become what we just saw. And that's what got me excited. We've been quietly trying to get a coalition of people to actually demand his release, but it's been difficult. But this particular example really made me realize that if anyone has anything that they can contribute towards this man's release, to do it now. Those of you who don't know about Mazi Nnamdi, I'm going to invite Ben to sort of give us a little glimpse as to who he is and why he's doing what he's doing and why all of us should demand, collectively and individually, for his immediate and unconditional release.
Well, today is a sad day in Nigeria because Mazi Nnamdi remains in solitary confinement. As of today, he has been in solitary confinement since June of 2021. Like Evans rightfully said, he was kidnapped from Kenya, minding his own business. But the fact is, this was not the first time he was kidnapped. He was first kidnapped in 2015 in Nigeria, and he was locked up for 2 years. And later on, he was released. And then there is a failed assassination of Mazi Nnamdi in his own home in Abia State. And miraculously, he escaped that very assassination only by God's grace. So he's alive today. But I want everybody to know, any day Mazi Nnamdi remains in solitary confinement is another day of violation of his fundamental right as a human being, as a father, as a husband, and as a community leader. There is no reason why he should be in prison today, if not for the sake of others. He wasn't fighting for his own. He wasn't fighting for his family. He wasn't fighting in the name of the Kano community. He was fighting for the interests of all. So I believe there's a video that we're going to show you so you can get a taste, a glimpse of some of the things that took place that really, made Mazi Nnamdi to come out in public and began to openly call for the freedom of our people. But before then, there's something happened. You're going to see a different Mazi Nnamdi back in 2013 in Europe. He wasn't campaigning for Biafra. He was not agitating for the freedom of Biafra. He was actually agitating for Nigeria to get better, for the government to take note of the suffering of the masses and do something. Do something so that everybody will benefit, with no mention of Biafra, until Nigeria failed him, and it was crystal clear that this country is not going anywhere. They're not going to listen. They don't care about their people. Well, if you don't care about Nigerian citizens, I'm going to care about my people. That's when he began to talk about Biafra, to talk about separating from Nigeria, so that every region can develop, at their own pace. So you can make policy and rules that will benefit your people because you know your people. Because there's nothing that holding Nigeria together. These three nations put together to be one nation, and nothing worked. Nothing ever worked, nothing is working, and it will never work. So I want to show that video while he was in London talking about the situation in Nigeria.
The reason why we're here today is to protest the killing of innocent women and children. Those of us in the UK are determined to work with the government for peace. We are determined to work with the international community for peace. But one thing we cannot stomach is a repeat of 1966. What is happening today in Nigeria was the reason why Nigeria fought a bitter civil war for 3 years between 1967 and 1970. If this continues, there will be another civil war in Nigeria. And this time around, no place will be safe in Nigeria. This time around, nobody will be safe in Nigeria. So it is imperative that everybody who has the interest of the country at heart acts now and immediately to stop this nonsense from continuing.
The Nigerian government has its own way of dealing with peaceful gatherings it doesn't like. The day began with a gathering of people come to pray for the release from prison of one of their leaders.
Provide us some evidence that IPOB's a terrorist group. More than 2 years later, still zero. You can't make free speech and freedom of association terrorism. Every single day that he languishes in that solitary confinement is another crime against humanity.
The protest that you saw, where you saw the army shooting people, innocent, unarmed citizens, that took place in 2016. Okay, our people came together, as they have done several years before, okay, to honor their fallen heroes, those that fell in the Biafran Nigerian Civil War of 1967 through 1970. So they gathered, this is a high school. They were not on the street protesting. No. They were not in front of the House of Assembly with placard protesting. No. They were not marching or causing insurrection anywhere. No. They were in a particular place. You have to go through a gate to come into the school premises. That's where they gathered. And that's where the combined forces of Nigerian Army, Air Force, Navy, DSS came in there, took a combat position on the ground, and opened a live ammunition. And at the end of the day, they murdered over 150 young men and women. 150 young men and women. And this was reported by Amnesty International. It was all over the globe. And to make matters worse, They took their body and dumped them in a mass grave where they poured acid on these children so they become unrecognizable. So how could somebody tell me or convince anybody that this is a viable nation that would work for everyone? These are the atrocities that led to the debut of the person of Mazi Nnamdi that you hear today. And this young man requested for things to get better, build schools, build roads and bridges, build hospitals, so that our women will have a place they can go and receive a proper medical attention. Build recreational centers, build factories. So as young men and women are graduating from school, they have a place where they can be gainfully employed. They don't want to do any of this. But this country will spend money from the oil revenue to import terrorists from all over the world. Right now, there are more than 5 terrorist groups that operate in the country today. Ansaru is in Nigeria. El-Shabaab is in Nigeria. Mieti Allah operates in Nigeria. Fulani bandits operate in Nigeria. Fulani herders that have been named the 4th deadliest terrorist group in the world by the Global Terrorist Watch of West Africa. These terrorist groups operate in Nigeria. And the government of Nigeria provides an enabling environment for them to thrive, for them to do their bidding. They provide them with logistics, money, arms, and then they send them to the eastern region of Nigeria to kill my people and to destabilize the region. That is their goal. And that's exactly what they're doing now. These are the things that brought out Mazi Nnamdi. If the country was working, you may not know who Mazi Nnamdi is. It wasn't working. And it's never going to work. Not the way the country is presently constituted. When he was out, people say you're calling for war, you want to war, you're causing problem. You know, he said, no. I'm not causing problem. I'm just asking our government, the government, to do the right thing by the people. So I'm going to stop here, and you can hear his goals and aspiration.
You're not talking about a federation when you say a confederation. You're not talking about a federation as part of Nigeria. You're talking about total independence.
Absolute independence.
Complete independence. Now, is there anything that can happen that will make you change your mind about this particular direction?
No.
So it is either Biafra or nothing else?
Or death, yes.
Or death?
That's correct.
If push comes to shove,
Yes.
will you go to war?
No, because truth is a far more potent and deadlier weapon than bullets and mortars.
So no war? You've ruled out the...
Absolutely, I don't believe in war, no war.
Well, we're going to invite Attorney Jesse to educate us a bit on the legal aspect of the whole thing where we are today. Brother Jesse, thank you, brother. There you go.
So, I'm a construction lawyer, and the only time I ever get called on to engage any sort of criminal law is if a client's son or daughter gets in trouble in college. But even the ignoramus construction lawyer knows when something's wrong from a criminal standpoint, and there are just so many wrongs involved with these timelines, and I want you to keep in mind two things that are fundamental, not just here in the U.S., but worldwide for the most part, according to the UN. One is the right to confer with your counsel, or to at least have contact on a consistent basis with your counsel, even if you're in jail, to have that right and have that privilege. Otherwise, how do you prepare a defense? The second is the concept of a right to a speedy trial, meaning you're not to sit and languish, let alone in solitary confinement, when when you are awaiting trial or awaiting the process to deliver whether or not you are guilty or innocent. So that's what sticks out most to me when I look at this timeline, and it's truly remarkable. But going back to October 2015, when Mr. Kanu was arrested and detained for over a year, you don't see anything about a trial or a finding of guilty there, right? You just see that he was detained for a year with no outcome. Well, I guess he made bail in April of 2017 and was released, only to be have his home invaded, has been said, in a government failed assassination attempt. So then the process was to kidnap him and torture him for 8 days and then hand him over to the Nigerian government. So here we are, some sort of accusations starting in October of 15, and then we're in June of 2021, 6 years later, without any finding of innocence or guilt, and this is still ongoing. January of 2022, he actually gets a trial, and the Nigerian army was found guilty of the failed assassination attempt in violation of his rights. Now, we've heard in past gatherings from lead counsel for Mr. Kanu that there are occasions where he would fly all the way from the U.S. and not be allowed to meet with Mr. Kanu to prepare a defense. So he would be told to wait and wait and wait and still not receive contact with Mr. Kanu, his client, okay, to prepare a defense to the proceedings and to the charges at hand, which is just absolutely nightmarish and outlandishly unfair and outlandishly a violation of human rights. We start preparing civil cases in the construction world that have just money on the line years in advance. Yet here's Mr. Kanu rotting in a cell, not allowed contact with his counsel to prepare for charges that could lead to any number of findings, including, I'm sure, ultimate confinement. In July of 2022, the United Nations issues a unanimous decision calling for the immediate and unconditional release of Mr. Kanu. Was that honored? Absolutely not. He remained in solitary confinement. And then in October of 2022, that finding is upheld by the Federal Appeals Court in Abuja, Nigeria, and Mr. Kanu was acquitted of all charges. And that appeals court demanded his immediate release from the detention. It gets to the Nigerian Supreme Court. Now we're a year later, and if you've ever been in litigation in a civil context, your cases always get put behind the criminal cases because of the right to a speedy trial. Well, here we have decisions from courts taking over a year to determine, whether or not this appellate court was going to be upheld. So the Nigerian Supreme Court, over 14 months later, upholds all dismissals. All charges are gone except for one, a terrorism charge. And that's what remains for Mr. Kanu is a single terrorism charge, and he remains in solitary confinement. I believe a hearing is set for Monday. Will he be allowed to confer with counsel? Will he be allowed to actually have the right of preparing a defense with his counsel? Probably not. What's next? What are they going to do next?
Mazi Kanu has been likened to Mandela. Alexei Navalny likened to Mandela. The difference is Alexei is gone. And if we do not do anything, this definitely will be the fate of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, which is what the government wants, and which we will not stand to see happen. So as we gather tonight, I just want us to think about who in the government that we know, meaning the United States government, to be able to speak up on behalf of this powerful voice that is being silenced by the Nigerian government, because only us can speak. Unfortunately, he cannot speak for himself. The trial is set for the 26th of February, which is just Monday. So we need to do something quick. We need to send a strong message to the Nigerian government that we will continue to demand Mazi's unconditional and immediate release from the dungeon. Nigeria is a country that poses to be a democracy. But as you can see, very far from being a democratic country. Mazi spoke up, that was his crime, and his punishment is actually being sentenced to death. So those of us that are members of the Ambassador for Self-Determination, our goal is continue to champion the release of the likes of Mazi Nnamdi, wherever they may be around the world. I think we've walked the halls of Congress, and we need more voices to rise with us, which I believe is going to make a strong difference. We want you to reach out to your representative, your senator, your congressman, and share the story of Mazi Nnamdi. We need to send that voice collectively and even individually, however way we do it, to the Nigerian government before this important trial. I think at this point, Ben, if you don't have anything else, I think we'll just open it up for Q&A. If you have any questions, you can fire away and we can basically try to answer those questions for you.
The question is there anyone else like Mazi Nnamdi that is currently being detained in Nigeria? And the answer is affirmatively, yes. There are many. There are many young men and women that were following him that are in different prisons in Nigeria today, not even being heard. Some of them are sick. Some of them are dying. So there are thousands of people like Mazi Nnamdi that is languishing in prison. But Mazi Nnamdi happens to be the face of the collective injustice against our people. I thank Attorney Jesse for just going down and listing the chronology of events. But today I started to think about this thing, breaking down the days from the time United Nations gave the judgment ordering Nigeria to immediately release Mazi Nnamdi unconditionally, and the perpetrators be tried. That is an whopping 580 days. Not from the time he was kidnapped, from the time the United Nations looked at the case, over 9 months of study, of investigation, and came out with a unanimous decision that this man should be released. A United Nations Working Group on Arbitrary Detention is made up of 5-member nations. It was a unanimous decision in Netherlands. So we are law-abiding people. People are saying, well, they have your leader in a prison, and what are you doing? You're going home to sleep. We're going to follow the law, and we follow the law. So United Nations has spoken on July of 2022. The Nigerian Appeal Court, their own court, spoke October 13 of the same year. As a matter of fact, their judgment went further to say that this man cannot and should not be tried in any court in Nigeria. Why? Because he was kidnapped. You can't go around the whole world kidnapping your dissidents and dragging them back to Nigeria and putting them in prison. The rule of law does not work that way. Even the Nigerian Constitution forbids such acts. But you're dealing with people that have total disregard for their own law because they have the gun and bullet. And they have a way of instituting enforced disappearance of any opposition. Abia State High Court looked at this case in January of 22, like Jesse said, and as a matter of fact, demanded that Nigeria would send Mazi Nnamdi back to Britain because he was traveling with a British passport in his pocket as a British citizen, and ordered the government to pay him the sum of 25 billion naira for violating his fundamental human right and apologize to him, where they haven't done anything. Nothing. They have not apologized. They are not releasing him, even when the appeal court said that they should do so. So how do you describe Nigeria? How do you stand up to say that you're proud to be a citizen of this country? I'm not. And Evans and I and several other people were walking the halls of Congress, both houses, the House of Senate and the House of Rep, educating the lawmakers in this country till every one of them are fully aware of the injustice that is happening to our people. Whether they do so collectively or individually, it doesn't matter. We are going to continue the effort until Mazi Nnamdi is released. You cannot go to Sambisa Forest and fish out every criminal, Fulani criminal, from the forest and then put them in some camp. And after 3 weeks, they usher them out and give them a white shirt and present them to the country as repentant terrorists. Have you ever heard of such thing? They say they've repented. They put them in the army, gave them AK-47, gave them a uniform, and sent them to the eastern region of Nigeria to kill the Biafran people. And these are the things that every human being should be alarmed. That's why we're appealing to you. Those that are here, your friends, your associates, whomever you know that is in the government, this injustice must go far and wide until justice is done. And we are not going to relent. We are going back to the Capitol Hill. We've been there. We're going to continue to go there until somebody stands up to tell Nigeria that enough is enough.
Are there any Nigerian congressmen? Natives?
No.
Okay. And so is there a way, almost with respect to Navalny, with that situation, his wife and daughter met with Biden today, as I understood, this is I'm walking through the room. So sometimes politicians want to find a worthy cause to identify with that, I just hate to say it, makes them look good. So somebody, if they can take a pill and understand what y'all have just presented, should be upset, disturbed. So you need someone, at least advocate, with serious authority and a following that would pay attention. I don't know who that would be, but it's just a thought.
Yeah, that's a good thought, and we are certainly working on that, and we have somebody that is getting close to being able to do that. And perhaps what happened may be the thing that pushes him over.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is there, and one last question, what's the benefit to other countries, either in Africa or here, not to stand up? Everybody's worried about human rights violations. You know, we don't do a thing about all the Chinese human violations against the Uyghurs or whoever it is, because it's business. So in this country, if we stood up and Nigeria got mad about us standing up for this man, what do we lose? What does a politician think we lose?
I mean, I think that as we are walking the halls of the Congress, it became apparent to us that what's in it for me and what's in it for us is what you have to deal with. So we are slowly educating people because Nigeria does have a lot of oil, and with what's happening in the current world, most people will think, let's not rock the equilibrium because it might mess up the supplies. So we have to really educate people to realize that if indeed the voices like Mazi comes out, Mazi is going to begin to advocate for democracy, and having a real democracy in the Nigerian region is a good thing for America.